You are listening to the Build a Brain podcast with Dr. Jeanne Zehr. Join the quest to shape an efficient brain that fires on all cylinders and runs like a fine-tuned machine. You are now in the capable hands of an international presenter and a pathologically optimistic brain builder. Dr. Zehr will give you the right blocks to build that 3 pounds of cerebral muscle for you, your child, or the young adult you teach or mentor. Block by block, thought by thought, now is the time to build a better brain. Let's get started.
Welcome, friends, to episode number 15 of Build a Brain. Block by block, thought by thought. Now is a good time for you to build a brain. Maybe it's your own. Maybe it's a child in your family. Maybe it's a teenager that you mentor. Maybe it's someone that you work with in the workplace. Either way, our brain is an incredible thing that we want to not neglect. It's the one thing that we probably don't pay enough attention to. I'm so honored to be a Feuerstein trainer. This is an amazing cognitive skills program. Came out of Israel. I talked about it a little bit in episode number 1. A program to help our brain work better. And we're going to tackle one of the cognitive functions that Reuven Feuerstein identified, and it's in the elaboration. Remember, I talked about input, getting information into our brain. Elaboration is how we process. And then output, how do we let people know that we know what we know? So today's episode is about one of those elaboration thinking skills called providing logical evidence. Oh my goodness. Have you ever looked at someone and went, oh, for Pete's sakes, you don't make any sense at all? Maybe you've looked in the mirror and said that. I am not making sense. I'm not being logic. So Kibwe's going to join me today on today's episode. So Kibwe, does it frustrate you when somebody is not being logical?
Absolutely. It is very disorienting when I feel like people are doing things out of sequence, or when I feel like I'm doing things out of sequence. I kind of have to follow a certain method of doing something. I notice this a lot when I'm building something or putting something together or troubleshooting something. I have to follow this process, or I just get really confused. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Okay, so you get this one, that this is such an important one, and sometimes we can confuse this with, am I not being logical, or am I just being too creative? Well, maybe, but even creativity needs to circle back and make sense. So a wild, new, innovative idea, if it doesn't fit in and produce something worthwhile, just to be creative for the sense of being creative isn't too helpful in life, right?
I agree with that. It's got to make sense so that we can reach a specific goal with whatever the new system is.
Excellent. So when we are wanting to help a child or somebody that we're mentoring or help ourselves, the question to know whether something is logical or not that we like to ask is, does this make sense in this space and in this time? So for this particular situation, is what I'm about to do relevant or not? Okay, now that happens to be one of the other cognitive functions, is something relevant or not. We've talked about that one. Let's see, that was back in episode number 6 that we talked about relevant information. Well, when you're talking about logical evidence, it's tied into this idea of, is it relevant or not to this situation right now? So I can tell you that in school, kindergarten children are really famous for this. You're trying to teach a lesson on the number 5, and a little kid's waving her hand in the air, and she says, teacher, I'm going to grandma's house tonight for supper. And you're like, okay, what's that got to do with the number 5? But a 5-year-old, a kindergartner, it doesn't have to be logical for them. Okay. Their little brain just goes down these little paths. So no, for young children, this is something that really does need to be built with a really good solid block from you. So what do you think, Kibwe? Who was good in your life for helping you make sense of life?
Well, I would have had to say my mom. She taught
Okay.
us how to think critically. And then my
Mm,
dad taught us how to work critically. And
okay.
so different tasks that we would do around the house or when we would go
Mhm.
out to help him clean up the yard, he would give us specific tasks. And if we weren't doing something correctly or we were doing something and it was making us work too hard, he was really, really good about just helping us understand a more efficient way of doing something without making us feel crazy. He always like would
Mm,
incorporate a joke or something into it, but it just
yeah.
helped us understand like there's probably a better way for you to accomplish this task, or you're kind of working against yourself. If you're
Mm,
trying to get
mhm.
all the leaves into the bag, you probably don't want to just take all and just keep dumping them like that. You want to get smaller chunks so you're doing less work and it's more
Yeah.
efficient. And so they were really good about that. I was very blessed in that way.
Yeah, so both your parents were able to show you what made sense in this situation,
Right.
whether it was doing schoolwork or yard work. So, yeah, parents are really important. And we sometimes just assume, and I've had parents say this, oh, she knows better, or, well, I know he knows better. Really? Are you sure they do? Maybe not. Maybe they only know what they know for their 6 short years of life, or maybe 14 years. So sometimes we assume too much that people that we're helping mentor in life should know something. Maybe not. Maybe not, if no one has sat down and really just talked about that. So, as an adult, as somebody who's mentoring somebody else, I want you to consider that when it comes to developing logical thinking, you may want to think out loud in front of that young person that you're working with. So, you're trying to figure out how to pay the bills, right? And you get the checkbook and you've got so much money that is in the checkbook and you line up the bills. I don't know. Do you still do this, Kibwe? Figure out, okay, what do I have to pay and what can we put off? Yeah, my
Yes.
husband and I do too.
Yes.
He'll tell me, slow down, Jeannie. You can't spend much this month. We have to logically make sense of what bills do we owe and how much money is available. Those have to fit together.
Right.
And so let your kids be a part of that. Got some thoughts on that, Kibwe?
Yes. So I think this is a skill set that I think I struggle with personally because sometimes I forget to factor in which one is the most urgent and not just which one was the last one that I saw. So you may want to make a phone call about one bill or about one thing so
Yeah.
that you can get yourself some more time rather than paying that one big bill off and now you have three others that you needed to at least pay something on. And so
Yes.
it's that amount of delegation and pragmatic thinking that
Mm-hmm.
for me, even as an adult, I definitely have to slow down long enough to
Mm-hmm.
lay everything
Mm-hmm.
out and be like, all right, so you
Mm-hmm.
need to make this amount on this, put this here, so that
Mm-hmm.
you're really thinking through a logical approach to getting one big task done.
Excellent. That's a great point that you make. And think about how you're still working on it. I
Hmm.
feel like I'm still working on what makes sense right now, whether it's paying bills or getting tasks done, managing my time, doing a big project, what makes the most sense to do. And so many factors feed into that. This is a huge cognitive skill that we should not assume can just happen without some practice, without some discussion, without just a moment, let me think. By the way, that is the motto of the Feuerstein program. Just a moment, let me think. Imagine how many mistakes we could have avoided in life. Things that we've done in the past that were like, oh, I wish I would have just taken a moment and not jumped to a conclusion. So another thing to consider is if you want to build logic in somebody's brain, either your own or somebody else's, is to play high-level strategy games. Now, I've got a whole bunch of these that I can recommend. You can go to, I'm pretty sure you can go to the news portion of mind-cap.org, and I think I've got my list of games there. If not, I'll get them on the Build a Brain Facebook page. Somehow I'll get them for you. There are so many amazing strategy games that demand logic, that you've got to decide what makes sense, and you've got to be thinking about what the other person is going to do, especially if you're playing competitively against someone. And we recommend here at the MindCAP Center that you don't it's okay if you want to do Settlers of Catan or you want to do Monopoly. Those are fabulous games, but they take all night. Or Risk. Those are big board games that take forever to play. Those are okay, but we also recommend some very short games that might only take 10 minutes to play, but they're high-level strategy. So a couple favorites I can tell you. One is called Pente, P-E-N-T-E, Pente. It's a beautiful game. You can buy it for usually $20 on Amazon. And it uses glass-colored stones, and it's how you place them strategically on the board to get 5 in a row, but you can also capture your opponent's stones. Really cool game. Very, very easy to learn, but you'll spend a lifetime learning the strategy and developing logic while you're doing that. Another game that is purely defensive is called Quarto, Q-U-A-R-T-O. Quarto is a game where you don't get to choose your piece. Your opponent hands you the piece that you must now play. And then after you play, you choose the next piece and hand it to your opponent to play. Crazy in that you don't get to choose your playing pieces. You have to go with what your opponent hands you. Well, life can be like that. We don't always get to choose what life hands us.
Absolutely.
We don't get to choose, when somebody rear ends us, and we're being a safe driver, or we've done everything right in our life and a spouse decides to leave us, or all of a sudden we get a cancer diagnosis and we've done everything right. You never know what life is going to hand you. So strategy games are just a really good way to do that block by block, thought by thought, build your brain to be a really good thinker. So if you're mentoring someone or you want your brain to be really sharp, a couple times a week, take time out to play strategy games. Now, for a family, this may mean that everybody turns their phone off. I recommend a wicker basket on the kitchen counter that everybody's phone goes off and throws in the basket, because I'm not worried about the kids and the phones. I'm worried about the parents. It's really hard for mom and dad to give up their phone, and myself included. Love my phone. It's my work, and so I'm constantly checking it. But I'll tell you, I love going on vacation with my husband, and we'll decide we're going to have a device-free day and we're not going to check our phones. We're going to take maybe several hours where we don't look at our phone. You might want to let your family know and the workplace know that you're going device-free for 24 hours or something. But I highly recommend disconnecting your brain from technology for some periods of time. game night for a family is a wonderful, we're talking like 1 hour that everybody's device goes in a basket and you have device free time and you look at each other and you laugh and you maybe order pizza or you have a big bowl of popcorn and you're munching together, laughing together, but you're also thinking together and you're building this incredible cognitive skill called providing logical evidence. So here's some questions. Okay, you ready, Kid Boy? Here's what you can ask yourself, okay? Does this make sense? Why or why not? I wonder why this works so well. You know, when something does, we just think it's a fluke. No, maybe there's a logical reason that it works so well. Is this the most logical way to solve this problem? Or am I making this more complicated by not being logical? Isn't that a good one? Am I making this more complicated by not being logical? So are any of those questions, Kid Boy, tickle your fancy? Do you like any of those?
The last one is really helpful because I think sometimes we get caught up moving and just trying to get stuff done that we just kind of start working against ourselves because we haven't looked at the whole task in its entirety. We're just trying to check it off. And so we could be spending way more time doing something that is a simple task just because we're just trying to get it over with, you know, that we haven't thought about what's a logical approach to getting it done.
Yeah. Step back, take a breath, just a moment. Let me think. Does this make sense? All right. So there we go. There's episode number 15, Providing Logical Evidence. And I'm Dr. Jeanne Zehr, and I hope you are enjoying this journey of building your brain block by block, thought by thought. Remember to leave a 5-star review and maybe type up a little written review. That would be wonderful. I don't need that for my ego, but the podcast does. And I hope you will share this podcast as well so we can spread the good news. See you on our next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Build a Brain podcast. If you're wanting more information on how to build a brain, please visit the website for the MindCAP Center in Fort Wayne, Indiana at www.mindcap.org. That's www.mindcap.org. Children and adults from across the United States and Canada have found the cognitive help they needed at the MindCAP Center. Their specialized team is trained in all levels of the Feuerstein program and can literally help you or your child build a new brain. We'll see you next time.